Little did I know, as soon as I put those clothes on, my mind went into audition mode. Like my whole mood changed. It was as if I was an athlete that was ready for a big competition. Hello and welcome to the Confident Musicianing Podcast. I am your host, Eleanor, and after countless practice sessions, a ton of broken reeds, and 7 different music school acceptances in 3 different countries, I have learned a thing or two about savoring your practicing, becoming your best practice companion, and actively working towards your musical goals. And I want to share this with you because I want you to become your best musical self. Are you with me on this? Let's get started. Hey there and welcome. Getting into the zone for auditions can be tough. I know, at least for me, every audition sometimes feels like trial and error with which will work and what won't work for getting into the zone. And it's different for everyone. There is a ton of trial and error, so today we are going to be focusing on things to remember right before that audition so that we can get into the zone. This episode will be split into 2 sections, mentally and physically. So let's start with mentally. The first thing is to have some things to say to yourself when maybe you start comparing yourself to other people or feeling nervous or really getting out of the focus zone. So we need to have some phrases that can bring us back into that focus and so that we can really get into the zone. The first one that I really like is, I am not behind, I am in the right place. I say this to myself all the time when I feel like I am comparing myself to other people and I feel like I am behind. This can be helpful for you if you maybe hear someone that's in the audition room and they are sounding so good and you find yourself comparing yourself to them. This idea of, I am not behind, I am in the right place, makes it so that you don't need to compare yourself to anyone. It's kind of like, if I am meant to get this audition, if I am meant to win or, go ahead in the rounds or whatever it is, I am ready to do that. The next one is, the judges want me to do well. This one is a huge one, especially when you are in the audition and they might seem big and scary because sometimes our brain makes us feel like the judges are big and scary. And a great way to kind of combat that is to realize that the judges want you to do well. They are looking for someone to win the competition or to get the opportunity or whatever it is. They are looking for that person, so they want you to do well. And the last one is, every world-class soloist was nervous too. Or maybe basically just every successful musician was nervous for their auditions too. Think about your favorite musician. Were they nervous for their audition? Probably 100%. And do you think they maybe weren't supposed to be in that audition? Heck no, because they are the amazing musician that you are thinking of right now. If phrases to say to yourself is intriguing and you want to learn more about that, there is an episode all about this. It is episode 8, Sweaty Palms, 3 things you need to say to yourself before your audition. I highly recommend it, so go check it out. It is in the show notes. The next mental idea is how you approach other people. Now, you might be saying to me, Eleanor, what do you mean how you approach other people? Like, that's not really mental. But the thing is, it starts mental. Like, it starts from your brain. It starts mentally. So, for instance, try not to see others as competition, but as inspiration. If you go into that audition and you try and listen to everyone and then you try and compare yourself and blah, 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 you will never actually get into the zone for auditioning. So if you see others as inspiration rather than competition, you can appreciate the amazing things that they are playing, but also focus on you, because when they are inspiration, that doesn't have to do anything with you negatively. It is not negative. It's the difference between, oh my gosh, this person plays so well, I never can play like that, I feel, an imposter, blah, 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 and then you spiral. Or, oh my gosh, this person plays so well, that is amazing, they sound so amazing, that's so inspiring, stops right there. or it creates a positive thing. I can't wait to sound like that one day, rather than, ugh, I can never do this. See the difference? There is a huge difference. So seeing each other as inspiration rather than competition. Now, let's be honest, this can be tricky, okay? I'm not saying that this is easy. I was faced with this challenge when I auditioned for the Peabody Institute of Music about a year and a half ago, and there was this girl who was before me, and oh my gosh, she sounded amazing, absolutely amazing. Her tone, her articulation, everything. And all of a sudden, I felt all the confidence that I had been building up that day, all of the, focus and self-esteem just completely go away. And in that moment, there were two very crucial things that I did to not only get that confidence back, but also play my best and get into the Peabody Institute of Music. If you want to listen to that story, because it is a great story, but also really helpful and insightful, that is episode 2, all the way back to the beginning of that podcast. Episode 2, Transforming a Disaster into a Music Conservatory Acceptance. Ask me how I know. That will be in the show notes. Okay, we're moving on to physically. Let's start with warming up. So, having a regimented warm-up routine is super duper important. Something that you are used to, whatever that is. So think about what do you usually do to warm up now? Is it scales? Is it arpeggios? Is it maybe an excerpt of something you like? Whatever it is, use that to warm up into your audition as well. If you warm up one way and then you get to the audition and you warm up differently, it might feel even more, different and not as comfortable. You want to make yourself feel comfortable and focused. So maybe you also go through some of the spots in the audition music before. I remember an audition that I recently did. I did that. There were just some runs that I wanted to not practice, but just do, right? Just before the audition. And that was really helpful for me. So if it differs in that way, that's fine as well. But, when you first pick up your instrument, you want to maybe play the same scales that you do when you are in the practice room. For me, at least, I don't play much before my audition. I do play the scales that I would usually play. I have this thing that I kind of go up and down the instrument like 1 or 2 times. It's not really that big, but it's just kind of how I warm up. But for me, when I warm up for auditions, I soak the reed about 20 minutes before, and then I do that warming up thing that I do when I practice. And then I basically don't play anything else after that. Every 5 minutes or so, I might, play maybe 1 or 2 notes to keep the reed wet, but really I don't want to get fatigued. And if you play an instrument where you get fatigued, do not play a ton before, and then you get to your audition and you can't play because you are fatigued. Or if you play an instrument that you don't get fatigued on as easily, then maybe your warm-up routine looks a little different. So it is very, very, very different for each and every one of us, and just play around, see what works for you. And you can also ask your teacher. Asking your teacher is really, really, really helpful. Okay, so the second physical thing is a bit strange, but I realized this recently. It is getting dressed. This might seem silly, but I recently went to the opera and I had absolutely nothing to wear. All I had were my concert and audition clothes, and I thought to myself, they're black, they're nice clothes. I might as well just wear them for the opera. Little did I know, as soon as I put those clothes on, my mind went into audition mode. My whole mood changed. It was as if I was an athlete that was ready for a big competition. So what I learned there was clothes are powerful tools to get you into the zone, because as soon as I put those clothes on, I was in the freaking zone. Having clothes that are just for auditions or performances can really help your body and mind know that they are about to be really focused and they need to kind of get into that zone. For me, I have specific audition clothes and also specific hairstyles as well. And they are very familiar to me, and my body knows that it is time to focus when I put those clothes on and I do my hair that way. It is time to focus. All that to say, I didn't end up wearing those clothes to the opera because I wanted to relax. One bonus thing before we finish today, and that is showing confidence even if you don't necessarily feel it. I recently sat down with Max Blair, the assistant principal oboist of the Pittsburgh Symphony, and we chatted all about this. The idea is basically, even if you feel nervous on the inside, if you show confidence on the outside, it can really help your insides feel better. So here's a quick clip from that.
I had a really interesting experience around this. The first summer I went to Verbier, which is the summer festival in Switzerland. I went for the first time when I was 20, and the average age there is like 26, maybe.
Okay.
So I was like one of the younger people, and just a lot of other stuff happened, like leading up to it. Like I missed my flight to Europe. I don't know, there was a lot of external things. Anyway, I got there and I was just not feeling good about the situation, and that kind of endured for the first few weeks of the festival, and I was kind of struggling, and then eventually I was playing principal on the first act of Die Walküre with Gergiev conducting, and there's in that first act there's a lot of touchy woodwind moments where there's intonation things and soft attacks and oboe solos and I don't know. Gergiev said in addressing those passages, it wasn't specifically directed at me, but it was really important for me to hear at that time. It was like, the first thing you need to do is just play. Like, just play out and play confidently, even if you don't feel like it. And if it's too loud or if it's out of tune or whatever, we'll address that. And it doesn't have to be a personal slight against you as a person. It's just, we'll just work on it.
Yeah.
And so I just took from that, like, exactly what we're talking about, where even if you don't feel it, you have to play confidently and then fix whatever issues may come up. But your first offering needs to be one of, sort of extroverted confidence and just forthright playing, and then deal with the details later. And that was really a turning point for me as an orchestral player. Like, when I got back to school the following year, my playing in orchestra was like much better and totally different. Just, more, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Grounded, more confident, yeah.
All right. If you want to listen to the whole thing of that episode is titled Navigating Juilliard, Working in a Professional Orchestra and Performing in the Tchaikovsky Competition with Max Blair. That is episode 32. The link for it is in the show notes, so make sure you go check that out. Let's do a quick recap. The first thing is mentally. So that is some things that you can say to yourself. For instance, I am not behind, I am in the right place. If you want to learn more about things to say to yourself right before that audition, episode 8 is your episode. It is in the show notes. And the next thing is how you approach other people, seeing others as inspiration rather than competition. And if you want to learn more about how I use this technique to kind of regain my confidence and play my best in an audition where beforehand I was so intimidated by the girl before me, that is episode 2. It is in the show notes. The next section is physically, for instance, warming up. Having a regimented warm-up routine is super duper important, something that you are used to, kind of figuring out what warm-up routine works for you because everyone is different. And the last thing is getting dressed, which seems silly, I know, but having clothes that are specific for your audition can really help your brain remember, like, okay, when I wear these clothes, we are in the zone. The bonus thing is with Max Blair, this idea of even if you feel nervous on the inside, if you show confidence on the outside, it can help your insides feel better. All right? Well, that's about it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, all the links to do with this episode will be in the show notes, from the blog post that goes with this episode to episode 8, Sweaty Palms, 3 things you need to say to yourself before your audition, to episode 2, Transforming a Disaster into a Music Conservatory Acceptance, Ask Me How I Know, all the way to episode 32, which is Navigating Juilliard, Working in a Professional Orchestra and Performing in the Tchaikovsky Competition with Max Blair. Do yourself a favor and take a look at these show notes, because let's be honest, there's some pretty good stuff in there. And if you want to show your love and support for the Confident Musicianing podcast, make sure that you give it a follow. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye!